it's just because I'm not very good at
There's maybe one, there's like, self-care stuff that monitor, all monitoring, that's all the time.
Is it team members or? It's gotta be hard for me. Like, who thought that was an idea?
Well, the tricky part is, you can pay for the grill stuff right there at Woody Point, like the burgers.
You don't even know who paid for what as you're walking out.
But then your soda, you pay for it when you walk in. They don't pay for it when you first order your sandwich and pizza. And then your other items, like if you want a piece of pizza or salad, you can go out. Or if you pick up a cookie. Because that's what I do. I get all the fries that I pay for at the front door. And then I want a cookie or some dessert.
All right. We're gonna get started with the professional development workshop for the afternoon. If you guys are still eating or drinking non-alcoholic beverages, go ahead and continue doing that.
Of course, that's what I was
So team, as you guys know, we've been doing quarterly professional development workshops. Typically that would have fallen in June. We had quite an eventful June per se, so we're just pushing it out to July, but we will pick it up again in September, again for another workshop. But for today, we have heroic conversations. So to Nicole, she kept asking me, "Where's my uniform, my outfit on, my suit?" So I'm virtually, I have an outfit for you. So we're going to talk today about heroic conversations. All right, and the idea, the heroic conversation, turning conflict into collaboration. So you guys know who I am, so no introductions needed, right? Does anyone need a recap? No. So my name's Jose. I do a lot of things.
Welcome, Steve.
You guys know who Steve is as well, right? All right. Well, Steve has put an image in my head I can't get out now because he says it reminds him of Count Dracula, like the Muppet Baby Dracula. So I now can't unsee that anymore. So it is what it is. So
You need the costume to go with
Where's
it.
the AI image to go with that?
Yeah, that's right.
that is the image.
Yes, I see it, Steve.
All right. So I think everybody knows who we are. So we'll go ahead and start the session. First of all, I do want to thank Steve for volunteering to present this with me. Originally, it was just going to be me, but I realized that I may need some assistance. Over the next time that we have together, we're going to work to identify when conversations become high stakes. We're going to apply key communication tools, we're going to review those, to maintain dialogue when emotions are high. We're going to use structured reflection and listening techniques to build safety and trust, and to practice real-world scenarios to build confidence and alignment. So there's some interactions and some exercises as we go through this. As I'm not just interested in us learning something for today, but I want us to get some practice in doing so. So if you're around me enough, you may have heard me say this, but I say this often. So we train others how to treat or how to communicate and treat us by what we accept. So we train others how to communicate and how to treat us by what we accept. And oftentimes we accept something because we just don't know how to navigate those conversations, right? So it's important for us to be able to create some boundaries for ourselves without being too rigid. And we're gonna talk some about that today. So I didn't make this up. I'll just clarify, this is not a Jose ism, as some people say. So I did take this from Crucial Conversations. Some of you in this classroom, in this room, have taken Crucial Conversations and recently, right? Could I get a show of hands of those who have been exposed to this content? Awesome. Well, it doesn't have to be recently, in general, over time. All right. So, Crucial Conversations, of course, is branded, and I would be stealing their stuff if, so I'm not directly stealing their stuff. I'm giving the Jose rendition or a twist to it, which is heroic conversations, right? We oftentimes, we recently had had a conversation with executive leadership related to how heroics is oftentimes needed when a system is broken, right? So oftentimes we present ourselves when the system is not working to fill in the gaps. But we're gonna do the same thing, but just with conversations. All right. So again, this is not my material. Although I've taken the Crucial Conversations as a 2-day class, as well as the Crucial Accountability 2-day class, which are phenomenal. I've actually taken both twice because I needed to go back to learn more. And for those of you who have gone through the training, or it is so rich in material that it does require a second look. You know, it's not something you can just watch one time and become an expert. And even with all of that, I'm still not an expert. And I don't think Steve claims to be that either. So we'll become experts together. I do want to point to the organization, which is Crucial Learning. Crucial Learning has quite a bit of offerings. They used to be called Vital Smarts, which never made sense to me because it didn't align with what they were offering. It sounded more like a diagnostic machine than anything. So I'm glad that they rebranded under Crucial Learning. So they have the Crucial Learning, Crucial Accountability, Getting Things Done, The Power of Habits, and the Crucial Influencer, which are amazing books for any of you who are interested. I actually own all of those and have read them. So, to get us started in our conversation, we want to share a little video just to get our brains going.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's gonna stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever gonna stop.
Yeah. You do have a nail in your head.
It's not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail.
See?
Okay, just fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping at all, and all my sweaters are snagged, I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It's,
Come on, if you would just.
don't.
I feel like you're setting us up. Husbands in the room.
All right. Well, I'm not trying to set up it. What happened here? Maybe I'm getting set up here. There it is. All right. Let's talk about it. What are any reflections, thoughts about the video? Besides, quite entertaining. Anyone?
You recorded my wife and I. But I will say, yes, between my wife and I, we have different communication styles, different personality styles, and it took a long time for us to go, we probably ought to speak to each other differently, and learning a different communication style, and literally going, she'll come up to me, look, I don't need you to fix anything, I just need to vent. Okay, all right. You sure you don't need me to fix this? Yeah, I just wanna vent. Okay, all right. And so it takes a lot to just let her vent, but that's what it takes sometimes. And that's why I'm laughing so hard and just asking you, but, you're right, just, sometimes you just, even though the problem's right there in front of you, you just gotta let them talk. And you just listen and be here for them.
Well, I think you and your wife figured something out, because how many years have you guys been married?
Oh, God. 36.
Yeah.
It,
So-
it took us the first 20 to figure out effectively communicate, and it wasn't easy, but we got there. And some days still, I revert back, she reverts back, but you know, we got to. Okay, I can make a snap decision and go, yeah, this is what I want to do. It doesn't matter what it is, she wants to think about it for 2 or 3 days. So I've got this analogy where I have to plant seeds and cultivate a garden in her mind. So if I want to do something right now, I have to think a couple days ahead of time and go, hey, there's no rush on this, but maybe can we think about doing this activity? Well, I don't know, okay, think about it, but I'd like to do it next week sometime. Okay, and that gives her time to think about it, but again, it took 20 years for us to get to that point. I got frustrated early on because I wanted a decision. She got frustrated because, look, I can't make a decision. I don't know. I don't have all the facts. I can't even think about this. So it takes a long time, and I think all of that is part and parcel of what they were trying to do, sir.
Indeed. Well, if it makes you feel any better, first 10 years of mine, I've been married 25 years. And the first 10 years was rocky too, because we're still individuals trying to operate as one, right? And it's difficult when you have 2 people that are trying to achieve that. But imagine 40 people trying to achieve that as well. Any other thoughts? Thank you for sharing. Candice, I think she, by a millisecond,
I think it's close to home for a lot of people, but it just, like Howard said, it just reminds me of like the dynamic and conversations I've had with my fiance. And something that comes up quite often is like facts versus feelings. And like he's a fixer. And so when I'm having a conversation with him, he instantly thinks about how can he fix something. Like what does he need to take from this conversation to complete a task. And like Howard said, sometimes it's just venting. Sometimes it's just like brainstorming or just clearing my mind. And so we actually starting certain conversations with, hey, I'm just going to vent to you right now.
Yes.
And it's helped so much because when I would just start like spewing stuff at him, he's like, oh gosh, okay, what did I do? Or what do I need to do?
Sure.
And I'm just like, it's not helping. Like I know that you can see the facts and the logic behind it, but we're talking about like my feelings. And that's something that I need you to be here with me in, and not just what you see that nail is, you know, what the issue is that you can fix. Like, so that's what made me think of.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Melissa, then Erica?
It kind of reminds me of the empathy video where the little cartoon animals and they're like, oh, I want this. Oh, you want a sandwich? You know, and like with my daughter, like she comes to me like your spouses and it's like blah, and I'm like, oh, well maybe this or maybe that because I was a parent, I want to help you. No, Mom, I don't need you to tell me what to do. You know, like, and I'm like, it has taken a lot for me to be like, sometimes she just wants to vent, you know, and so I try to remember that and not always give advice because it just makes her more upset. Like, okay, well, I'm sorry you're feeling that way. You know, but it is from both perspectives, like it's just communication, learning from each other. So.
And some of us are natural fixers, right? Like it's embedded in us that we want to just resolve and move forward, right? But that's not the solution for everything, right?
So one of the things that my wife and I have talked about in this kind of communication are the 3 H's. I don't know if anybody's heard of them. It is the, do you want help, do you want to be heard, or do you want a hug? So those are the 3 things that we start the conversation, or help, heard, or hug. And you start off the conversation with that. I want to be heard. Okay, I know what my role is in this conversation moving forward. So just something that
Yeah,
helps us.
I like that. I like that. It's great. I might steal that as well. If it helps, when I first got exposed to Crucial Conversations, I went berserk on it, and I was like, oh my God, this is great stuff. We got a book. This is how long ago it was. We got a packet of, it was a workbook, and then you got about 9 DVDs. 9 DVDs, and we sat there, we just put them in, or CDs, sorry, not DVDs, it was CDs. So I put the CD in, and we sat there and we listened to it. Me and my wife listened to all of them together. And the whole time we was like, see, that's what I've been trying to do. But it's very interesting activity to do with a loved one, and they have some free versions of this, older editions on YouTube that you can leverage as well.
What I just liked about that vignette was how, like, you can have 2 things be true at the same time.
Yes.
You know, it was the perfect example of how intention can override, I guess, your ability to see perspectives, or like like alternate perspective taking.
Yeah.
It's like, I guess she really did need the nail out of her head, but she was only gonna do that when she felt hurt.
Right.
That's a good point. Erica.
I think think of this in like a work context with, there's times that we are listening to, like, say, we'll call our customers or our clients, and we already see the writing on the wall, and we're already like, can see their kind of pain points, but we can see why they're having those pain points, and we're just like, it's very frustrating when you're like, pull the nail out of your head and it'll be better, I promise. Or you can not listen to me and keep snagging your sweater. But, you know, like, I think that it can be really frustrating when, you know, I think that was there's a lot of things you can look at that scenario of, I wanna be heard, but also when there is a glaring solution. And also, like, how do you lead somebody into that, and to be able to also listen, let them vent, but also, you've already seen, I think we as trainers, or just anyone that's been through all of these projects, have been in many meetings where we've seen the writing on the wall, and we're like, this is going to be bad. We're so, like, I mean, this is probably gonna have problems, but it's, I don't, you know, but you have to kind of just listen and be prepared to kind of, let it, yes, be ready with the fix, because we already can kind of see it coming.
So if any of y'all didn't gather, Erica's a fixer. Right? I'm a fixer too, so I get it. And sometimes, to Emily's point, you can still fix it, but there's a process to go through it, right? All right. Anybody else, any other reflections before we move on? So a couple key ideas from Crucial Conversations when heroics are, well, let me say, conversations require heroics, are conversations when the stakes are high. There's something at risk. We have conversations all day. We communicate often, right, about a million different things. We're trainers. That's like our business is talking, is communicating, like sharing information, right? But it's different when the stakes are high. You probably have seen this in class or in instruction, or many of you, where you're thinking you're doing an awesome job instructing, and then you get that person like, that's not how it works. Right? That's not what we do. You know, and it's like, okay, now the stakes are getting higher. The other thing is, to that same point, is when our opinions vary. And our opinions vary often, and that's okay. That's part of us being individuals, being unique, and having our own perspectives. Also when emotions run high, right? So when the topic is, hits home and it's something that's sensitive. So it's important to understand when these conversations require heroics. And we're gonna talk about what those heroics will be in a little bit. So as part of the key concepts of crucial conversations, they talk about the pool of shared meaning. And this is not a real pool, but it's a figurative pool where each of us has something to contribute into that pool. And this is the whole point of conversations and hearing the other person, their opinions, where they're coming from, rationales, etc. But you have to have them first in order for them to share it, right? Or make the waters safe so that when you feel safe getting into the pool. Have you guys have ever been like in a hotel where they have like a swimming pool? Sometimes they may be under construction, right? In some cases, there may be a little bit of water at the bottom, right? Still, is that a pool that you feel safe diving into, right? It's very shallow. And when we don't share what we have to share, then the pool of shared meaning is also shallow, and it makes people weary or feel unsafe to dive in. So it's part of the reason I'm having a conversation, a dialogue, so that both people or all parties can share and contribute to that pool of shared meaning. So the goal of a healthy, crucial conversation is to get as much relevant content out in the air, into that pool, or so that people can make the best decisions. This is vitally important for us in leadership as well, right? If we just made decisions in a vacuum without talking with the team, we would do what I did a couple weeks ago. So, it's not. So again, it's when people feel unsafe to contribute to that pool, or that water is shallow, then they do one of two things, and we'll talk about violence and silence. So violence and silence is essentially holding the information back, silence, like I have something to share, but you know what, I'm gonna let you make your mistake. You do your thing, and I'll tell you, I told you so later on, or I told them so, right? And what happens is that pool stays shallow when nobody contributes to it. So it's important just to have dialogue and have it continuous. When my daughters went through their teenage years, they changed a lot, right? I changed a lot, but our relationship changed a lot. They went from being my little girls to like, ooh, get away from me, daddy, And my biggest thing was to ensure that conversation continued, right? So we didn't have to have the best exchanges right away, but I just wanted to make sure that they were talking to me, right? So I would keep on attempting. They didn't want to, but I'll keep on attempting so we can have a conversation, so we can continue, eventually get to that point. I share that many of you have children as well, and probably have been through something similar, and if they're young, let's see. And what ends up happening overall is when that information is not being shared, or the pool of shared meaning is not being contributed to, it results in bad decisions for everybody, right? We just go operating with the stories that we have in our heads. So this graphic is directly from Crucial Conversations framework, and it does a great job of really depicting that pool of shared meaning that's in the middle. We'll talk about these different paths in a moment, but you can obviously see them. You see and hear, tell a story, you feel, act, and then they contribute. But the most important thing is the circle of safety that's around that pool. Because if you don't know what I'm gonna do with this information, you may be reluctant to share with me, right? Why are you asking me that? Have you ever been in a situation where like someone asks you something out of the blue and you're like, what are you gonna do with that information or something, right? But the more you have the conversation and understand intent, then the pool, you start contributing to that shared pool, and it no longer becomes shallow. We'll talk about silence and violence, but essentially the silence is the withdrawing. Each of us, I include myself, have been in situations where I was upset, and one of the first things I do is like, let me shut up. Let me be quiet. I don't wanna make things worse, so let me just be quiet. But what happens is, then you're not sharing that, what you're feeling inside, there's no resolution that's gonna come. The violent side is not necessarily, I think I heard somebody say choose violence, there was a sticker or something. You never wanna choose violence. But the violence is not like, you know, like you come at somebody with a knife or something, right? But it's the controlling, right? The behaviors that manifest is labeling. Like, well, that person's this, or they're only doing that because they're a jerk, or, you know, whatever label that we put onto them. And then the attacking, you know, which oftentimes happens, we start attacking each other personally when a conversation goes awry instead of sticking to the facts, right? Next thing you know, it's about me, and it's not about what we're even talking about. So, when crucial conversations turn crucial, it's the instance that you or the other person notices one or more of the following three elements are present. Hey, that was supposed to be 1, 2, 3, or 1. Well, high stakes, as I mentioned. You know, there's a lot at risk with the conversation or the results of this conversation. The differences of opinions, where I may think one thing, you may think another, and then it becomes like a battle of wits. Or the strong emotions are tied to what it is that we're talking about, and some sensitivity there that needs to be navigated. It's also important to notice the moment that the conversation turns crucial. Could anyone tell me a time when you may have noticed a change in yourself or another person when a situation or conversation has gone awry? Anybody want to share?
Sorry.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
Oh, no,
I was
you're
saying
good.
the CERN project.
CERN project, okay. Tell me more.
I'm channeling my Emily and team here, but I think operations had different expectations but didn't tell us. And so when we did deliver on what the ask was, and then somehow it wasn't enough, and so it created a much higher workload and reprioritization of a lot of other things that we were trying to get done. And so I think that we took a step back to try to accommodate, to kind of reduce the emotions around it. But I feel like we held pretty firmly around what we were gonna do for this go live.
Tell me about your emotional state when you had that realization.
Well, it was a little bit challenging for me because some of the people are from my old team. So I know them on a different level, and the way that they were in the meeting is not how I normally experience them towards the negative. So I kind of, took a step back, but still advocated for our team.
So tell me your emotional state that you had about the project.
I didn't have a great outlook because I felt like we delivered on what the original ask was, and then somehow it came out that the ask wasn't enough. And then I knew that there was some rumblings behind our back about what we did provide.
Okay.
And I didn't appreciate that. But I still think we took our best foot forward and we're gonna deliver again.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I'm harping on the emotional side of it, which we're missing, but it's all right. So.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, he's
Oh.
asking for feelings.
Oh, my feelings, sorry.
Sad, angry, frustrated.
Yes, PO'd.
It felt,
Yeah.
it felt like the
You
whole
PO
process
and frustrating.
wasn't, it didn't really feel like, I don't know how to phrase it exactly, but it felt a little bit like I was observing disingenuousness in a partner that I rely on for my main point of collaboration. And that was really frustrating, and I honestly felt a little, I don't know, disappointed.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like even hear her talking about it, my stomach is tight, it's
Yes.
betrayed,
Yes.
the word is betrayed.
So there is
I feel it in my body.
Yes, and that's exactly where I'm trying to get to. There is a visual, something that we see visually, but there's also something that we feel internally because of what we're seeing. And those emotions oftentimes can kind of get in the way of us having a productive conversation to resolve it, right? So what ends up happening is our adrenals start to fire off. Because now I feel threatened. I feel like, you're making me do more work. Like, you know, I thought we were friends. You know, like you start having these feelings inside of you, right? Your body actually starts to prepare as if we were in like 10,000 years ago and they were being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, right? The thing is, we don't have a saber-toothed tiger to chase us anymore. What we have is these daily situations that we get faced with that produce these similar reactions inside of us. And that influx of hormones that get produced through like our adrenals and other glands in our like brains and such causes us to act a certain way. Whereas fight, it was like, all right, I'm down, let's go for it, right? Flight, I just want to avoid it, I want to get out of here, I don't feel good, I don't feel comfortable, right? And that's this is perfectly normal. Or I see more and more often, freeze, right? There's this whole term that they say for the Gen Zers is called like the stare, apparently. It's like it's a real thing now, where they just blankly stare with no emotion, right? So our bodies, that's a traumatic response, right? That is wired inside of us, that all of us have it. Some are better at hiding it, some are better at managing it, but we all have these visceral type of responses. I jumped the gun a little bit with the discussion, but I appreciate the situation with CERN. Is there any other examples where you've been in a situation where a conversation probably started off well, but then ended up all of a sudden like, whoa, I'm feeling something, something's going on inside because of the conversation changed, it became crucial. Steve.
One of my favorite instances was doing a rounding time for one team. And I walked into a room filled with nurses, and I said, hey, I'm here to check in, see how Go Live was with one team. And they looked at me, and they didn't even say anything. And I already knew that we were about to have a conversation that I was not prepared for. And you feel all of those things. And my face got flushed, my heart rate began to increase. It was one of those moments that feeling all of those things. And that goes back to what they wanted. They wanted to be heard right then. And I could not fix anything. But that's one of those difficult conversations where I didn't have the answers, I couldn't fix it, I wanted to, they wanted me to fix it the best I could. But hearing that and knowing that feeling, knowing that I need to recognize what I need to do next really helped. So having the training ahead of time and knowing what reaction I was gonna have really prepared me to begin that next part of the conversation.
Great example. Anyone else? Yes.
I just heard the secure chat. Lord. It was like one of the last, what do they call, demo sessions. And, you know, people had lots of good questions, but there was this one meeting in particular where I don't know what her role was, but she was very persistent in the fact that we were not considering a lot of things, you know, when we were talking about, well, Secure Chat can do this and do that, and, you know, mainly about the nurses not having phones. And she was very upset with that, and, you know, I'm just there to do a demo. So, you know, I'm there to show you what Secure Chat does, talk about unified communication as a whole, and kind of answer system questions, but her questions were more geared towards operations and, like, you know, the day-to-day and decisions that was way above my pay grade. And, you know, I kind of expected it, but she was kind of like I said, really just insistent on like, well, you're doing this and you guys are doing it. And, you know, I think I just had to kind of take a step back and, you know, in the middle of still trying to answer other questions and still present and just think about, like, I know her frustrations are not at me. I know, you know, I kind of just represent, you know, the team or the department or whoever has made this decision, and I am here in this moment, so I'm getting a lot of things that aren't for me, and so I was able to deflect a little bit and move it around and kind of put her back into you know, you have to talk to your leadership about some of these things, but I could just hear, like, in her voice that, you know, she was angry, she was upset, she was concerned, and, you know, it was challenging to not meet her there, but I knew that that's not, you know, that wasn't gonna help anything, and when times like that come up, I instantly go into, how can I be helpful?
Yeah.
And it's like a switch, and I'm like, you know, and I think part of my empathy comes in, and I'm like, what, putting myself in their shoes, what are they angry at, and like, what would I wanna hear in that moment? And so, I think, like, I could hear it, I could feel my body kinda getting hot, and like, my heart was racing, and I'm like, and I had to, you know, take a break, and, cause I had another meeting a little bit after that, and it went beautifully, but, you know, it's like, it kinda transferred over, and, you know, I kinda had to like, manage my emotions while managing hers as well, so that's just what that made me think of.
Thank you for sharing that, by the way, and it affects your other conversations you have, right, as well, if we're not acknowledging that and checking it before we go into someone else's, another interaction with somebody else.
Yeah.
Right, we end up spreading that residue in the wrong places. I will say this, I didn't intend to say this, but I'll say this really quickly. When you said the meeting, you know, meeting the energy, there's a tactic, there's a program that's called Language of Caring, that I was a facilitator for at Hopkins at once upon a time. And it had a great tool that was called mirroring. So, and it's essentially, you know, it's about delivering care to patients, but it was also applicable to like all roles and any interactions. But at times, and this is specifically for me, sometimes I could be kind of stoic in a sense, like people say, oh, you're always so calm and everything, but you know, losing my mind inside, but you see, you know, calm and collect, right? But there's a time where if, let's say Howard brings an issue to me, he was like, Jose, I can't believe this is happening, but whatever, right? And if I say, okay, Howard, like, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. You're like, man, this guy ain't listening to me, right? But if I meet him, you could still mirror the energy without being like, well, what about you? You know, like, you can say like, oh my God, like, yeah, that's frustrating. I can tell me like what happened. Like, you know, you meet them with that energy. The same way with like your posture, right? So like when you're having a conversation and someone stands up, stand up with them, right? Because now you change the dynamics of the conversation as well. So the person's, oftentimes like you cross a leg, you know, you're talking to them, you cross your leg too. It makes there's actually brain science behind this where it makes you feel like more at ease because, oh, this person's doing the same thing I'm doing. Even if they realize it or not. So there's a science behind that as well. So even though we don't want to meet people with their energy, especially if they're frustrated, it's important for us to mirror their concern. So that way they're not interpreting it like we're not hearing the severity of their issue. It may not even be that severe, right, to us, but like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened. Like something like, you know, with a little emotion versus like, wow, like tell me more.
Good customer service, right?
Indeed. All right, so we talked about silence and violence, so we're gonna talk about it a little bit more. But this is the path to failure, right? And it is the path most walked, if you will. So when people don't feel psychologically safe, they move from the healthy dialogue in one of two directions. And that is silence, withholding, you know, meaning from the pool or the contribution to the shared pool of meaning. And that can be in the form of masking. My favorite, sarcasm, right? I do this all the time as well, and I probably shouldn't, but I try to be funny sometimes and probably at appropriate times. Sugarcoating, right? Avoiding, just steering away from everything altogether. Oh, I'm not dealing with that. Or withdrawing, just pouring out like entirely. And that's essentially what like the silence manifested. We have violence where you're just trying to force meaning into the pool. No, you're not hearing me, so I'm gonna talk louder so you can get what I'm saying, right? And that's what ends up happening. You're like, hold on. Now you raise your tone and disrespect, and now I want to mirror you. I want to match you, right? And I'm like, well, I can talk louder. And so you have, two people just yelling at each other, and then nothing gets contributed to the pool, right? And I shared this with Steve earlier in the week as well. The silence and violence are the same thing. They're the same emotion, the same action. They're just moving in different directions. You know, there is similar to like love and hate. love and hate, they did a study on people who are in love and people who are like just habitually angry. And they did MRI scans, and the brains are the same as far as the love and hate. They're the same emotion, but again, just moving in different directions. Very interesting. And then the violence, you know, again, controlling, coercing, like trying to force them into a corner. Censorship, right? How many of us have been censored? Like we want to share something, but someone said, like they didn't want to hear it. Or even if they didn't say that, they, like their behaviors reflected that. And that's not a good place to be. Labeling, stereotyping, dismissing, attacking, belittling, and threatening, right? These are the paths to failure. So,
Can I ask something?
yeah.
In that last screen, what if you have, cause I'm always silent, cause I don't deal with conflict. So I'm silent and I've got somebody that I'm trying to talk to that's violent, that's acting not like violent, but is controlling and wants to do it the way they wanna do it, and they don't wanna hear anything I wanna say. How do you, cause I've been through that through all of my UVA career.
Yeah.
With
So,
managers and other
there are a
people.
couple tools that we'll be reviewing shortly that I think will answer that question. And it is, they're two crucial conversation tools of how to frame that conversation when you're experiencing that. But we'll get there, I promise that. But in the meanwhile, we have a short video. When I say short, it is 11 minutes. I know that doesn't meet our standard of short, but it is a very good TED Talk. She is a prior nurse, and she's an executive leader in their organization as well. And she does a really good job at helping us to speak up, even when you don't want to.
Sorry, commercials.
We don't got the pro.
We don't have premium YouTube, okay? We're trying to save money.
Access to the largest global airport lounge network.
Silence. It can be a needed moment of peace and contemplation. But what happens when silence becomes a barrier? A barrier that muffles the voice of truth, of advocacy, of change. Speak up. Advocate for yourself. Stand up for what you believe in. That's what they say, right? Well, even though I know they're right, it's easier said than done. I'm sure we can all think of a time when we faced a crossroads, perhaps the precipice of an uncomfortable conversation, when speaking up felt like the right, if not even essential path. But silence seemed safer. I can vividly see and feel myself being in those moments. Times when I stood red-faced, embarrassed or offended, frustrated or angry, with a sinking feeling in my stomach, unable to find my voice, and unsure if I had the courage, confidence, or will to face the difficult conversation before me. Sound familiar? We're not alone. Research from Vital Smarts, a global leader in organizational performance and leadership, tells us people would rather quit their jobs than address a challenging situation. In this post-pandemic,
So fun fact, she got her bachelor's of nursing at the University of Victoria, which is a program that my aunt helped found. My aunt was one of the first women in Canada to get a master's of nursing.
baby boomers retiring and a wave of quiet resignation upon us, the world seems to be working short-staffed. Now, I'm a nurse and have worked in healthcare leadership for a long time. And I'm here to tell you, in this profession, we can't risk losing anyone, especially not
not for the reason of avoiding a challenging conversation. In a world where we are experiencing increasingly rapid cycles of change, we can expect difficult conversations, particularly in the workplace, to happen more often than ever before. Moments such as sharing feedback, identifying mistakes, or calling out disrespect. They're not always easy, but often critical to the performance of both individuals and a team. In healthcare, where stakes are high, our willingness to raise concerns can be vital to the quality of care we provide, but also to the safety of patients and the care team. In fact, research also tells us that when we do speak up, we experience more job satisfaction, increased team morale, and in my world, support better patient outcomes. I've experienced this for myself. Now, I don't have all the answers, and I don't always get it right. In fact, I make a mess of it sometimes. But often I found it's a bit like cardio or weightlifting. Well, we feel a bit vulnerable at the time. With practice, we start to experience the benefits. It gets easier, and we get better at it. We need to find a path to help us get past that initial fight, flight, or freeze response to get us to the table and make leaning into uncomfortable conversations the desired action for our own benefit, as well as to benefit those around us. Now, I was fortunate. I had some amazing role modeling by parents who encouraged me to use my voice, specifically when I knew I should, but didn't want to. My mom, an intensive care nurse for many years, had a special ability to address tough topics. Traumas, embarrassing bodily functions, or sharing critical feedback. She always created airtime for normally avoided matters. With a fierce moral compass that was sometimes incredibly frustrating, she advocated for what was right, showing me the importance of standing up for oneself and others, even when uncomfortable to do so. My mom, she died a long time ago now, and I still miss her desperately. Something I think I miss the most, though, is her always knowing the right thing to do, and the way she guided me with that moral compass. And despite having a couple of degrees under my belt, lessons learned from that moral compass, they guide me more than any of my formal learning. She showed me that as leaders, and I mean all leaders, both formal and informal, we play a pivotal role in leading into courageous conversations and creating a safe place for others to do the same. It's probably our strong commitment in this area that inspired me to go into healthcare leadership.
Oh my goodness.
Let's get another city. Lesson learned, right?
It's only 11 minutes. Well, I forgot so many commercials.
You did 20 minutes.
A path that often puts me in an area of high conflict and tricky conversations. But in doing so, exposes me to innovation, change-making, and meaningful work. It's an incredible career that I'm honored to be a part of, and I owe it to my mom and myself to do it well. So when I find myself needing courage and confidence, making that momentous step into the abyss of a difficult conversation, I try to remember my mom's moral compass and the principles she worked so hard to nurture in me. I imagine holding a compass in my hand, the cool metal upon my skin, taking a breath, a moment to pause and ground myself. I see the directions of north, south, east, and west as symbols, reminders of her core teachings. North, I think about the North Star, a guide towards the good and right thing to do. In tricky situations, I remember my mom's voice, Be the best version of yourself. Take the high road. Say what needs to be said. So, the S itself reminds me of support. When people support me, I feel seen, cared for. When it comes to supporting others, I try to do the same. Leaning into tricky conversations with kindness and an intention of helping people grow. And EAST, the E stands for empathy. Empathy sets the tone for a conversation. As a leader, I want people to feel safe coming to me. I try to understand their feelings and create a safe place for them to be themselves. And WEST, the W stands for wonder. Getting curious about what might be going on for the other person. I ask questions and listen, so I understand before trying to be understood. When I focus on the principles of the compass, I'm able to move from reactive to proactive, getting into a mindset where I can be true to my values and share my voice. I recall a situation not long ago where I was able to put the compass to use. I was in a change management and communications role for a big project. And while the work was complex and bumpy, I was proud of myself. I was writing good stuff, inspiring hearts and minds, or so I thought. One day a physician came into the office where I was meeting with my boss's boss, and a number of other leaders. He had one of my newsletters printed out and was waving it in the air. Who's the cheerleader setting up this stuff? As an optimist, sometimes to a fault, I knew right away that cheerleader was me. While I was embarrassed, I had a split second to decide. Stay silent or speak up. The compass came in handy in that moment. North Star. What was the good and right thing to do? Well, I needed to own my work. Take the feedback. So I said, that would be me. He lowered his arm and said, well, this is too positive. Not an accurate representation of what we're going through. Well, still defensive, and remembered support and empathy. I wanted to create a safe place where he could feel seen and heard. So, I suggested we sit down together so we could better understand his concerns. Next step, wonder. We went to his office and I asked curious questions. And over some tea, he told me his story. He got out a red pen and circled the 9 times I mentioned something positive in that article. I acknowledged. There's too many, understandably devaluing. I then asked if we could look for times I'd mentioned challenges. To his surprise, and frankly my own, 18 times. 18. I mentioned things that needed to be fixed. I was able to let him know I was embarrassed by being called out in front of my superiors. And he apologized. You know, that time spent together, it was valuable for me. And I think we both took something meaningful away. So I always remember the moral compass. North, North Star. South, support. East, empathy. And west, wonder. I know when I'm true to my compass, I'm courageous, confident, the person I want to be, and I think the daughter my parents would be proud of. And with my husband and our 2 daughters, I get the chance to pay it forward. So I hope you'll join me in leading into tricky conversations, not only finding our voices, but understanding the imperative to use them. Stand up against the wrong, champion the right, and be the voice for those who cannot speak for themselves. No matter how shaky or unsure, we can be a powerful instrument of change and advocacy, leaving all people involved stronger as a result. Thank you.
Change it for another commercial.
I think this is a sign we need to go to Florida.
I think so.
Is that our next one?
There you go.
Alright, so what are some of the takeaways that you have from that video?
I'm sorry, what was the question again? I apologize.
What takeaways do you have from that video?
Yeah, I like the compass.
I really like that moral compass, guiding conversations, and guiding, I guess, not just, yes, decision making, not just conversations, I like that.
I think, there was a framework to the conversation. I don't know, but that there was that northwest, east, south, that there was a framework that could be relied on in the face of a crucial or critical conversation.
And we're gonna talk about, as Jose said earlier, we're gonna talk about some more of those frameworks that we can employ to help with those conversations.
I think if you have that compass in mind, then it's the opposite of coming in defensive, so you're using those tools rather than just automatically going in defensiveness.
I think, and from experience I've had working on that help desk, and something I've learned, when they would call, and the very first thing they're doing is they're upset, they're angry, they don't understand why we do things the way we do, and, the empathy part, starting with that, you know, making sure you understand where they're coming from. It kind of brings that tension down a bit so that you can actually hear them and they can hear you. I think that's a really important step, and I hadn't actually thought of that as something within a framework of a conversation, but a very, very important step.
Anyone else?
I like about it is that it's repeatable, and so like with repetition, you build a habit for yourself, and so clearly that's worked very well for her. It's like landmarked in a lot of really personal things, so like, it's interesting how you can take that framework and then personalize it for oneself, like what is my North Star? You know, do I have different words for my points on the compass, and then, you know, try to invoke that repetition whenever you have a moment, you have a post-it note, you know, right where you need it. But I like that is sort of like an objective approach to a subjective experience.
That's a great insight, Emily. Anyone else? I think the biggest takeaway for me, if I could share that, is she said it was about curiosity, wonder, which was the W, and just keeping a curiosity or type of mentality. One takeaway we had as a leadership team when we spent a day with Henry Yampolsky, the ombudsman. He came to our professional development session.
That's great.
And one thing he drove home was like, what do we really know about the person or the situation? We think we know something, right? We think we've come to a conclusion, and we'll talk about the reasons why we do that naturally. But keeping that curiosity and wonder, as far like I'm just curious, why is this happening, or curious, why are you saying this or doing this, right? Like just understanding it, it helps frame the entire conversation, because you're not going in accusational, like, or you're doing this, right? Versus someone asking you like, this took place, why did it happen? Versus, you know, instead of you did this or you did it wrong, you gotta go fix it, you know, something along those lines. But I took that away, that the wonder is very important. All right, so we're gonna do something, because your eyes are looking glazed over. I know it's been a long day, but we're almost there. Post-lunch. We're gonna break out into 3 different, not break out, like don't leave. We're gonna organize ourselves into three groups, right? Did we say 3 groups, or what did
I think groups of 3.
Groups of 3, sorry. We're gonna organize it into groups of 3. And we're gonna provide you some scenarios, but I wanna read through them, all right? So scenario number 1 is training an analyst. All right, a trainer sends an analyst a request for build changes needed before training begins next week. If this is coincidental, you know, the analyst replies with an irritated email. We already discussed this. I don't have time to make changes because training keeps shifting the requirements. I'll get to it when I can. All right. Dun, dun, dun. Scenario 2. Scenario 2. A CT is credentialing within a PT, with a PT.
That's the wrong one.
Is that the wrong one?
That's the wrong one.
What happened here?
I don't know. That's the
We're about
wrong
to go
one.
with it then. I mean,
All right,
it's
so-
here. All right.
It's too late.
It's too late. Then I'm worried about the last one then.
I think the last one is the wrong one.
Toothpaste is out of it.
All right. Toothpaste is out of the the case. So a CT is credentialing with a PT in a new application. During the teach back session, the CT arrives late and has not reviewed the targeted content. As in the session, the PT says, hey, can we talk about today? And then the CT replies, well, maybe if you communicate updates better in advance, I wouldn't have to improvise. I did the best I could. My emphasis. Now we change.
Okay.
Scratch number 2, I'm sorry. Unprepared peer. We'll rephrase that. 2 peers are partnering on a shared project. During the group session, one arrived late and had not reviewed the material beforehand. Afterwards, the other one says, hey, can we talk about it? Sure, but honestly, I walked into that meeting feeling behind because I didn't know that there would have been updates. I feel blindsided and was expected to figure things out on the fly. All right, scenario 3, my apologies again. Unmet training needs. While rounding, you stop by a new hire who was assisted to support a new application, but you never trained on it. You ask how things are going and how they can help. And they reply, honestly, I've never been trained on this. I've been piecing it together on my own, and I feel set up to fail. All right. So we're gonna break out in groups. We're gonna organize in groups of 3. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna identify, you have instructions, I'm drawing.
I think we count them. I think, or we just have them group into 3.
Yeah, I
I think
think
just,
groups into 3.
yeah, just group yourselves into 3, 2 or 3.
We're gonna identify when the conversation is turned into a heroic conversation or a crucial conversation, and how you would handle it. Are we clear on the, right now that we're on the same page, and I'm on my own same page? We're gonna break out in groups of 3. We're gonna pick a scenario. Pick one of the scenarios, just one scenario.
Individual in blue then? Or, oh, okay, gotcha, okay.
You are the conscious observer of the whole situation, right? You're not necessarily in it.
We're not one of those people.
And you are gonna identify when the conversation is turned crucial and how you would suggest to handle it. All right? We got about 15 minutes, and then we'll pick on a few to share afterwards.
I really, it is a lot of noise in my ear.
Like little Aaron, it's
I was like, oh, that's not what I read.
I fixed it.
I'm rallying for the whole cadence stuff, and I mean, we could train on cadence for that. I mean, I'm certified that train cadence in what, 2 years?
Please tell me. Please tell
Yeah, full context. Tell us about your project. Tell us about your conversation to tell us what you would do. Yeah, start from the beginning, kind of. Tell us about your experience and what you would do to your
I can, if you guys want me to.
Tom, did you want to be a spokesperson? Or would you rather her do it?
Yeah, because I'll send us out a rabbit hole.
Okay. I'm very good
She
at
doesn't
that.
mind, so.
Yeah. So be curious, ask some questions, like
What training have you had?
when did you start working with, like, just to kind of get a gauge of, like, maybe.
Well, figure out what they have had training.
Or some combination.
There's some ways. I'll be able to see it. I know.
You would say anyway, because we get a lot of this anyway.
I think you're right though, so we would start with
function that way. So you all need to go to the manager and say, I'm gonna quit.
The phrase I like to use for that is
Ask clarifying questions about that, and can you tell me more about the training, and then.
like, and that's also a question I feel like we never got asked. Can you tell me more?
Definitely you don't want to hand out the resources to landlords to then figure out what is what.
We have about 7 minutes left.
What is your order? Oh, we got Buddy Bad
Apparently they ordered 2 sizes. I didn't realize that even come in multiple different sizes. But this one so it doesn't get trapped behind your bag.
I think this one's one that was, I was supposed to get along.
I can't remember, but I wrote down the word skill, but I'm not sure what that is.
Oh, yeah, the Culpepper one. That's the Remember they were using this for
So looking back on it now, I think I at least tried to do support these. But yeah. Right. So, yes. Yeah, that's basically it. So, and also looking back on it now, one of the other things I could see that I couldn't see then is that managers didn't have that. So here we are, they were just told down, you have to go here and do this. They have to take this off, and they asked them, they were getting it. You never know, you know what I mean? And so like, I think I could have done a better job of facing there.
I got the fire, I got the
I think I tried really hard to get it, so we tried to close the gap, but that's, it's just what I see, but I
Surface.
it's so hard.
Yeah, I think at one time put it through the bag, speed it up.
Ever have to get a bad replacement? Those
Oh no, it was screwed and it broke up to whatever, and I couldn't swipe it.
Yeah, you can.
You want to switch? Well, I don't know, the same size every time.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Thinking about it, I think it might have been one of the friends of mine. It might have come from close the gap, which is important to do. Like, that was a good thing. Right, that's right.
I think you can go to
I hope everyone had a good discussion. We're gonna bring us back, so we're gonna pick on a couple groups to share. So for those of you who are in your groups of 3 or 4 or whatever, if you guys have a person that's a spokesperson for the group. All right, let's pick a spokesperson for the group. And we'll pick on a couple people. All right. We're going to do this hands up like the kids. All right, we're all back. So I heard some good discussions. So I'm going to pick on a couple people. But before I pick on a couple, is anyone that wants to volunteer and share what their team discussed, which scenario they picked? And go ahead, Janet. Everyone, hold on one second. Everyone, Janet's going to share for her group.
Okay, so Carrie and Nikki and I picked scenario 2, unprepared peer. So there were 2 peers who were partnering on a shared project. During the work session, one arrived late, had not reviewed the materials beforehand, and afterward, the first one, who was prepared, said, "Hey, can we talk about today?" The other one says, "Sure, but honestly," okay, that's where the first mistake was made. They are not being honest, and when they did their reply, that conversation turned into kind of a critical conversation. Because they said they walked into the meeting feeling behind, well, of course they were, because they were late. And they didn't know that there had been updates, because they didn't read their material. They felt blindsided, and felt like they were expected to figure things out on the fly. They were making excuses because they weren't prepared. So, to resolve that, the first person can say, they can deflect the situation. Hey, let's talk about this and let's see where things went awry. Let's go through the materials, bring you up to speed, and let's move on from here, so that you're prepared for the next meeting.
What about the second piece here? Anything that you think that he or she could have said better, or in their reply?
Everything.
I think at that point, they were just very, very defensive.
Yeah, the only thing they said right was sure. And from then on, you know, they could have said, sure, can we go over this together and bring me up to speed? And the other one can say, yes, after I smack you around something.
She chose violence.
Internally.
Well, I think it's, number one, I think it's interesting.
Or I'm sure, I'm sorry, I was unprepared for today.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I was unprepared for today. Let me see what I can do, and do you have any suggestions how I can be better prepared for next time?
Thank you. So I thought it was interesting. You didn't just look at the reply, but you also looked at the initial conversation, right? That sounds. When we talk about today, it sounds like we're about to get chastised, right? Like perhaps that could be phrased a little bit different. But a mentor of mine always used to say, no matter how someone presents to you, that doesn't dictate my response. Also, right? There's always this space that lives between the initiator of the conversation and our response. That a choice is there for us to make, right? And how we respond. But yeah.
No,
Great. All right, thank you, Janet and team. Anyone else? Anyone else chose violence? Yes.
I was my scenario. So Lori and I went with scenario 3 because this is like the running. So they were while rounding, we stopped by his fire. We had honestly, I've never been trained on this, I've been piecing it together on my own, and I feel set up to fail. So, it became, crucial as soon as they said honestly. Yeah, in our opinion, honestly. No, they were lying in number 2. Number 3 is a new hire, so honestly, like when they just come off right off the bat and say honestly, I feel like I've been set up to fail. So they feel like they've been failed by the training team. They've been failed in their onboarding process. The first thing that we would do is, as we always do, we would apologize for how they feel, how our team has contributed to how they feel. And then we go into discovery. Was the correct access requested? Was the correct training assigned? Was the correct training completed? And then we start to ask questions, have workflows changed since training was developed? Did we know that you guys were doing this? Is this a new workflow for your department? And those are questions that we would probably have to escalate to someone not a new hire, but ask somebody else.
Sure.
But yeah, so that's what we determined, our response would be.
Does anyone see what Jess just did and team?
The curiosity.
It went to fix it mode.
Yeah.
No, I have
There was curiosity there because you asked a lot of questions as well. But that with the attempt of resolving, to fixing the situation. Not saying it's necessarily bad, but just consider the nail
Would
in
it be
the
the
head.
manager's fault for signing in to support if the manager was got them trained on it?
Well, and that's like.
It could go, it could be a number of things, right?
Yeah.
It could be a number of different things, number of contributing factors, right? Just like mentioned, what if they didn't go to training? What if they just didn't get the training that was needed, just like Jessica was trying to say? And then Carrie immediately wants to blame the manager. Blame the manager? So what else?
Well, I'm just thinking, I'm thinking it outside of Epic too, like, like my son said, when he started, he didn't get a CDL on Chronos or anything. Basically, you tap in, tap out, like, there's nothing. And so that's another thing, is there even training in existence for this issue that they're having?
Right.
So, but it does have to be fixed if they need to do their job.
Sure.
Thinking you could probably maybe spin it on, I took it a different way, where like, just, that's something new and they were asked to like, I thought, well, maybe you're really good at what you're currently doing, and so that whoever asked you to do this just kind of felt like you were smart enough or capable
Like a
enough
halo
to
effect.
jump into it, yeah, you're a fast learner and you were kind of given an extra challenge or something.
Could have been their manager, was confident in their ability to learn complex details, right? All right. Anyone else? Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for speaking up. Candace?
I'm not voting, okay. We chose scenario 3 as well, and ours was interesting because, Lisa and Jill come from a different department, and they were part of huge issues in that department, not caused by them, but they experienced them. And a little bit of that is just changes were made, and I don't think that after the changes were made, they were clear on like what were the responsibilities, the expectations, but yet they were coming down pretty hard on them that they weren't meeting these expectations that weren't clear. And so we're rounding, and then somebody's like, well, all these things have changed in my department. We have no training on this. We don't know what's going on, but everyone's saying we're doing a bad job. We don't even know like what is happening. And so I think when we determined that it was crucial or was, they said the same thing, write it honestly. But yeah, I think it's just when we heard that their expectations weren't clear, because that's really high stake. If you care about your job and you want to do well, you need to know what's expected of you so you can know if you're meeting that mark. And if you have no idea, and also all the emotions behind like you're not doing a good job, and the frustrations with wanting to do a good job but not knowing how, and then going to your leaders and they can't help you, or they're trying to help you but their leaders aren't able to help. So I think just during asking more questions, we were able to uncover more of that. So we kind of went through, you know, all of the North Star and the NEWS, and so our North Star was kind of like, we knew the people at the core, they wanted to do their jobs well. And we know they cared about, you know, showing up and having the information they needed to be successful. And we really were empathetic with them because we knew like they're frustrated and they're not like blaming training. They're just mad at the situation. They don't have what they need. And we just listened out and we kind of were like, you know, mirroring, and just like, we hear you, and that is, you know, that's extremely challenging, that's frustrating, and we're sorry you're going through that. And we began to wonder and asking more questions, and Lisa brought up a really good question, like, can you tell me more? So we could try to understand like what processes, you know, that they were having challenges with, and how did it used to look, how does it look now, and kind of figure out where we could expand that wonder. And that kind of rolled into support a little bit, where support isn't necessarily like being able to fix it or have an answer, but maybe knowing when we should escalate or how we should escalate, or, you know, let's ask Jose if he can help out with this, or, you know, whatever the case is. But also with the support, asking more about their workflows, so maybe we could provide like tip sheets or like show them something in the moment, or maybe work with their leaders so that we could have like additional classes. So we kind of
assessments.
yeah, that type of thing.
Awesome. You guys did great. You referenced the North Star tool. You mentioned the high stakes as well, and then you said that you would escalate to me. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But jokes aside, each one of these situations and scenarios, you could see where opinions vary, right? You could see where stakes are high as well, right? And you can also see, I'm gonna jump ahead of myself a little bit, but there is a protection of my identity here, right? So by being looked at as showing up late or not being prepared, sometimes it affects how we identify with ourselves, especially if we're overachievers, especially if we are typically on top of things, right? Or we think we're on top of things. But when you challenge the identity, then oftentimes that's where it becomes high stakes, because now my identity is at risk, or how I identify as. So there's a little bit of those components in each one of these scenarios. But thank you for walking through these scenarios. We're gonna do something really quickly. We're gonna take a 5-minute break, so you guys can stretch, use the bathroom, whatever have you. When we come back in 5 minutes, we'll get started on sharing some of the tools that I mentioned to Carrie a little bit earlier. All right? So let's take a break now, and thank you for your participation. 5 minutes, which would be, what time you got? Yeah. So at 2:55? So at 2:55, we'll get started again. 2:55.
I try to do that, especially on meetings where we need to listen, but I would definitely have to put my spreadsheet out for my earbuds and I walk during the meeting. But yeah, like, they basically went through it large. Yeah, of course. These chairs are terrible.
Sure. Okay, I got that. I didn't realize how much you
I like to take this minute, so just get some ice. Do you want a cup of ice?
Oh, okay, I'm bringing it over.
Hilarious. I foster a lot of hamsters, so I think that's really good. Foster hamsters?
Yeah, so my son's taking care of it. I hadn't done it in a while because my mom's had health issues. She's been a little bit more stable. Yeah, not able now, but so my son's got to make us a good
I'm trying to rationalize that.
I think so. Like, did I order it? I can't remember.
I think he got some sleep. Go back to bed and sleep about
I didn't really have a ton of hats. So this is there and it's about right. So we're working on
Tom. I like your shoes, man.
Oh, thank you. They are very comfortable. They're not really all that terribly expensive.
You speak my language now. These they're like they dress shoes, but they're like they feel like sneakers.
They look like they got the soles.
Man, these things are so comfortable. Like I have a bunch of other dress shoes, but, you know, the day of wearing like pointy toe shoes, you know, you can't start to hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Those are like little bit basketball shoes. They're like they're ridiculously comfortable. And then the way they bend, like with the perforations. Oh my god.
That's nice because you don't get all those cracks.
Yeah.
And stuff on them. Usually. But, yeah, those look like the heels have a little bit wide so that you get a little more stability.
I appreciate it.
How's the e-learning?
I really like it. I'm pretty stoked with that. Can't wait to get to the AI though. I was hoping that we could slide that in before we rolled out Smart Start, but I think it's going to beat it. So I think Justin said that they're going to make some changes anyway, so we'll slide it in there. But I thought, you know, Smart Start's one of those, they're the higher tier that you would want to have your best foot forward on, because everybody else is already programmed for training people in support of Smart Start. So we'll get it in.
I'm confident that we're getting it.
I thought I saw something that might not.
Every week there's emails back and forth between the Articulate legal team and the UVA legal team. They're just trying to agree on terms. So like legal's involved. So that's why it's taking so long.
Yeah.
HR and legal.
That's HR and legal. I was going to say 2 P's at a time.
So I thought I got word from Articulate. They were like, yeah, you guys are good to go. And then I was like, yes. And then they were like, nah, we actually not. We don't like this sentence. Or we don't like this term. We got it. And then so they're like, it's like, I feel like a never-ending. We'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I understand being cautious and careful, but this isn't like Copilot or something. This is literally just some voices that get better at speaking. It's not plugged into anything outside of UVA, you know, necessarily. And so I feel like it's got plenty of firewalls. It could have been an easy win.
There's like something in the wording that they used it, the information inputted to train their AI models. And that's like what they were worried about, because that same AI model, even though it's not necessarily sharing like our proprietary type of information, the fact that like other organizations are benefiting from our use of the tool. They have a problem with that. I don't really see, but again, I'm not illegal, so I don't.
Yeah, because
I'd be like,
door
okay,
swings
good.
both ways, right?
Yeah, right. So it's like, if Colorado's using it, right, then we should benefit from that as well. So I feel a certain way about it, but apparently there's some other legal stuff.
But usually it's that way. That's why we used to take upgrades that were 3 behind everybody else. They want everybody else to work out all the problems. And then we get a nice package with a bow on it.
I'm looking forward to that package. I haven't seen it.
I'm looking forward to it.
I can see that with the bow at least. All right, we're about to get started.
So I'll be honest, I don't know about my favorite computer because I haven't done all of it.
So I looked on my big computer. It still says Windows 11, so I'm guessing it's
The only thing I know is my Outlook. Like it has the full file on
guide you in a certain way. People can come That's hard. It takes One free. Parking ticket. I had it. Not the freebie. Maybe once a year? Okay, well, I did get a ticket. Okay, I did get a ticket one time. I had a friend pass, and it was for the high road. And I forgot to put my card in the window. I had 8 spaces on, and I just forgot to put my card in the window with the date. And they gave me a ticket. And I read it. And I said, here's I'll send you a picture of my card. It says, you know, I'm filling it. It says, track today. And they're like, they scan the license plate.
Yeah. I've been this probably.
All right, team, we're gonna get started.
It's when I was still on site. I used to car pool, so I had passed there. But I couldn't ride with my car pool.
I parked in a lot of places I shouldn't, so I know.
How many tickets have you got?
Everybody, I've been given an assignment. I've been given an assignment to take a selfie with you guys in the background as well. So I'm gonna attempt this. I don't know why this screen is. My head is blocking Steve and. All right, is everyone in there? I know Molly's hiding somewhere. All right. I don't think so. Here we go. This is better.
Should get someone in the hallway to get the group.
You need 0.5.
What we can also do is afterwards, we can just post that up and then just pose, and then we can take a snippet from there. All right. Everybody back? No child left behind? Is there any children left behind?
Oh, it's a cord, yes.
Is anybody else missing that we should wait for, or are we good to get started? All right. So we're gonna kick us back off. I know Carrie had asked for some tools, and there's two specific tools that I think would be super beneficial to share. The framework of Crucial Conversations, they have quite a bit of offerings or like things that you can use, but I wanted to expose you to something that you can use right away. And that is STATE. It's an acronym because we love acronyms, right? So, and we're going to talk about what this means. So the first part of this framework is to start with your facts, right? So when having a conversation, we oftentimes go straight to the emotion versus identifying the facts that may have contributed the emotion, right? So Steve, you've been late to class time and time and again, right? So on this date, you were 5 minutes late. On Tuesday, you were 7 minutes late. On Friday, you're 7 minutes late. That's stating the facts. Steve's not late, but I'm just saying. What I'm doing is I'm not going into be like, you're affecting the whole team and like because you're showing up late and it shows that you don't care. And also, we're not jumping ahead of it. We're just stating what the facts are. Those are indisputable, right? We know these are things that just occurred. You did this, you said this, right? Not like I interpreted what you said or interpreted what you did or it made me feel, but you did these things. These are definitive things. And it's the best way to start a conversation with the facts, at least your facts. Second part is to tell your story. So, Steve, because you've been habitually late, it makes me think you don't see a priority to attend class when your students are late. Steve's like, what the heck? Right, but you tell the story, you share your facts, and then you tell your story of how you're interpreting the facts or how it's making you feel. Right, we've had this conversation as well multiple different times actually over the last year and some change. And oftentimes, it's very okay to talk about the impact. And this is not just from manager to direct report. This is anybody. Like this could be husband and wife. This could be peer to peer, right? So you've impacted me. You made me feel a certain way because of what you said and what you did, right? Now that requires some heroics to be able to say these things, right? But again, this is a tool that they share. After you share your facts, and then you interpret those facts of what the story is or how it's making you feel, then it's important to pause for a second and then ask them for their perspective. Ask them for their path, their facts, their stories as well. Because again, this is a dialogue. It's not just me dominating a conversation. We want to contribute to that pool of shared meaning, but it all starts with how we make it safe to have the conversation. We indicate how it's making me feel. This is the truth for you, right? Your feelings are your truth, and I'm sharing that with you. And then now I'm asking you for your facts, your stories as well. Now you talk tentatively, right? You just talk. explore other options, like just have a conversation. You laughing at the not wimpy. Right, because it's, and what I mean by that, I was purposely being funny, but what I mean by that is, you don't wanna say, well, what do you think? What do you think we can do, right? Like, when I have a conversation, we're equal people at the table when we're having this conversation. So, I don't wanna just hear what you have to say, I wanna share mine, and we go back and forth, we dialogue. But you give people a safe place to share, and because you started with the facts, you started with how the interpretation of those facts, and now you're asking for theirs, and we're just talking. And the last thing is encourage testing, right? And we're not doing practice scenarios, right, with each other. But once we've talked about it and shared what you think you could do to make the situation better, or whatever it is that whatever the situation is, then you encourage us, let's try that, right? Maybe I could start off with asking a question versus jumping to a conclusion, right? Or trying to fix the situation. Maybe I could just inquire first with wonder. Maybe we can start with some wonder, some curiosity, so that way we can have a productive conversation instead of me just accusing you of something, right? So then it's, okay, we agree, and then we go about our business. So we shared the facts, we interpreted what those facts are, or the story that we have. We ask them for theirs, we talk about it, and then we try something different. We don't wanna have all of this, and then we go back to doing the same things, right? What ends up happening when a person apologizes for something they said or did, but then goes and does it again, right? That is called manipulation. And that's a sure way to pollute the water, or the pool of shared meaning. And again, back to this scenario, the see and hear, right? What you saw, what you heard, I'm just reporting that. This is what I heard, this is what I saw. See, you've been late 3 times in the last week, right? Telling the story, well, man, I thought you were better than that, man. Right, and now, like, I feel like embarrassed because now my team member is getting this feedback, and I'm responsible for you, so now it's reflecting bad on me, right? Let's talk, and then we talk about it. I ask you for your feedback. You have some car trouble, whatever the case is, the things that occur in our lives. We share that, and then we explore that. What can we do to make sure that we're not late again? Well, we got Uber. What's the public bus around here?
CAT, Charlottesville Area Transit, CAT.
CAT.
The CAT bus.
CAT bus, right? You explore different options. Now they try that. Now they're late next week, and we have a different conversation, right? But we have to start somewhere in order to make the pool safe. But there has to be some type of effort on both sides.
So the next one that we like to use to keep that dialogue open is AMP. So our first part of AMP, do you want me to control? Oh, sorry. So the first part of AMP is ask the question, all right? Get the things rolling. What's going on? What do you hear? I was in a conversation where even before anything began, I asked, if this happened, what about this? And that got the person to start talking. We could begin to have that conversation a little bit easier. It's that wonder part. It's the questioning. It's being curious. Anybody who hasn't seen the Ted Lasso scene where he's playing darts and stay curious, that is by far my favorite scene of all time. Go look it up on YouTube. But it's about being genuinely curious about what the other person is thinking about. You ask the question, and then you listen. You stop talking so that they can begin to explain and give more information. After that, you mirror to confirm those feelings. All right, we were talking about mirroring earlier, your body language, your voice level, posture and seating position. Great ways to begin to mirror so that you can hear and make sure those words are understood on both sides. You can also say that your words are not matching what I see. One of the all times, I'm fine, okay? That tone and those words don't always match. So you can say, bring those things up when you see those things in practice. Next is paraphrase. Being able to acknowledge that story and put it in your own words to show that you are actually listening to them and hearing what they're actually saying. So, for instance, is that you're feeling upset that I'm late because punctuality is part of what you see in your employees. So having that and mirroring that conversation or paraphrasing what you hear as their story really helps build that pool. And then the final one is prime. When you're getting nowhere, you just have to give more information into that shared meeting, into that shared pool. Make it deeper. One of the reasons I wanted to be part of this presentation is I normally go to the silence. I withdraw, I pull things out of the pool when these conversations happen. So being able to practice and put more into it when it feels uncomfortable, because it does feel uncomfortable to have these kinds of conversations, to open yourself up a little bit more to fill that pool of shared meaning is really important. So give more background, give more information about why things are happening. The telling your story, I feel like that's something that we now do almost on a daily basis. My wife and I do it together when we are talking about, random things, the story I'm telling myself. I hear all of you when you come to me or come to leadership with issues. I've heard you begin to say, the story I'm telling myself is. So using those things to pour in more information into that shared pool.
Before we talk about it, I think I'm missing a couple slides from here, so I'm gonna make up for them. There is a term that one of the senior trainers for Crucial Conversations is used that I thought was phenomenal, and it's called the fundamental attribution error. Have you guys ever heard of that before? Does anyone want to explain? I see some nodding heads.
So the fundamental attribution error was explained to me by the most amazing psych teacher that I ever had, and so it's stuck in my head because when you have a great teacher, it can be hard to forget. So we have a tendency, this is all about explaining behavior, and it's about explaining behavior from the perspective of yourself and for other people. So when we're talking about ourselves, we have a tendency to think about the situation. Like, what is happening in the world around me? I was late because here are the contextual challenges that I was facing, emotional challenges I was facing. However, we do, in Western culture specifically, have a tendency to ascribe other people's behavior to their innate sense of self. So they're late because they're lazy. But I'm late because everything was going wrong and I just couldn't win.
Right.
And so we misattribute other people's behavior. We have a tendency to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt more than we do somebody else.
Yes. How many of us do that?
All of us do it. All of us do it.
Right?
I disagree.
How many, you said you disagree?
I disagree.
I'm harder on me than I am anybody else.
So, let me give you an example. Have anyone been cut off on the street?
No, it's their fault.
I've literally had, like, I meditate and, I think prayer is a spiritual word for meditation. So I do, sometimes I do my encampments and stuff like that when I'm trying to get holier now in my car, especially driving down, right? And I have literally said a prayer and then got cut off and cursed that person to death, like sent them to Hades and everything else, right? Like, you mother, right? So it's to animate what Emily elegantly stated. You know, we oftentimes we would just judge the person, like it's a character flaw. They don't know how to drive. Like, get off the road. Look at the speed limit. I'm right here. Like, and it's because there's something at risk. It's our lives, really, right? Something's high stake at risk there. But have any of you ever cut off someone on accident?
Yes.
I've done it, right? And I'm like, oh, my bad. And I'm like waving back around, I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. In my mind, I was like, I didn't see them, right? It wasn't that I can't drive or that I'm a jerk on the road or anything. Is because I didn't see them. So I rationalized my behavior, right, to justify who I am, but I'm judging the other person that's doing the same exact thing that I did because it's just not me. So we do this often. And oftentimes we jump to conclusions, right? That's why it's so powerful to keep that wonder, that curiosity in mind before we jump to conclusions. I've done this before. Well, I know exactly what happened. This happened. Oh, I know exactly what happened. I knew this was gonna happen, right? Like, we didn't know it was gonna happen. Like, you think you do, and you think you know what the problem was, but in reality, you haven't even gone through the initial steps to go through the process to understand the other person's perspective. So I think it's very important for us to keep that in mind, right? Where we oftentimes rationalize our own behavior because it's something that may happen, and that's true. It's true, all these things happen. Flat tire, traffic, airlines ate my bag, you know, whatever the case is, right? But if it's somebody else, then it's, you, I can't believe you did that. You're out to get us, or you're just a bad person. So I think it's important for us to understand that, because that feeds into the story that we tell ourselves when we villainize other people and we victimize ourselves in the process. So there's a lot of psychology behind this, but it's important to keep these basic tools in mind when we're going through these tough conversations, because we're gonna have them, right? We just talked about a major change that we're gonna undergo over the next year. There's gonna be some tough conversations during that time. There's gonna be some things you may not necessarily understand, but it's, you know, we have to have a conversation so that us as leadership can pour into that pool of shared meaning, and that we can all dive in and enjoy some time in the pool. All right. So let's bring it back to the villain, Jose.
The evil Jose.
Yeah. So we're gonna do our last exercise. All right, this one's a little easier. We're gonna pair and share. So you don't have to go far. You can just pick a person next to you if you like, or if you have someone across the room that you want to pair with, by all means, feel free to get up and pair with them. So each person is gonna choose a real but safe workplace conversation they've avoided or wanted to redo. All right, so a conversation you either avoided or one that you had that you wish you had what do they call it, a mulligan? Like a redo, right? So partner A is gonna practice initiating the conversation using state and amp. And then partner B is gonna listen and just give feedback. All right, and we'll just switch roles. We're gonna do this for about like 10 minutes or so. And then we'll reconvene in 10 minutes and do a quick debrief. And then we'll conclude this section.
Summary of this stuff, so we can make sure we're getting.
Thank you.
My boss's boss about like.
I think you and so, can you think of a situation?
So
like, if we had a product spelled out, like,
Well, it's one that I'll never forget. And so this is when I was,
Wow, so this has been a while.
it's been a while. So we were pulling down 60 to 80 hours a week because we went short. And one of the pathologists, Mrs. Hart, we were talking about how can we cut the new tracks. And he said, how about we have our techs work more overtime? I went silent.
Because you were already working.
We were keeping down, fuel from the fact that we were so short.
And did you regret that? That you would shield them?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we were all just sitting around the table brainstorming out the top of the hat.
So did you go silent because you were like, oh no, I haven't told him, and so now he doesn't have that as an
Oh
option?
no, it was a that we're doing this. We're not paying attention. And we're doing it for them. Because we could have let the wheels fall off the bus. And they would have had a lot of work.
So how would you?
So I'll be Dr. Stoller, and you can be.
Oh gosh.
I didn't hear he's not here anymore. You may have heard his name. So I understand we have an issue with the turnaround times. Is there any way that we can have our techs maybe?
And now I'm supposed to respond.
What do you think, guys?
Would it be possible for us to spend some time brainstorming other alternatives to that approach?
Well, I think that sounds reasonable. So what is your schedule now, and how can we work to make that?
So how did you play your role?
I guess that is kind of difficult, you know. And so,
How about if I play this role and you play your role?
exactly.
Okay, so,
I will go ahead and respond to myself.
okay, so you go ahead and respond and then I'll pretend to be him and we'll see if I can do this.
All right, so Dr. Stoller, are you aware of what our schedule is?
I'm a little embarrassed and ashamed to say I'm not really clear on it. Can you shed some light on that?
So we have been working 60 hours periods for the last 3 months. And so we're at the end of our record log on how much we'll be off.
I'm surprised this hasn't come up.
See, that's what I wouldn't even know how to proceed there.
So what are you thinking in your head when he says that?
And so what I'm thinking is because that's our job. And just a little backstory. Because I used to get people like candy bar for giving us $73. And so we're looking at pathologists. All of those glass slides that they look at in the microscope are, they go through us first. We put the dot on the slide and tell them what the diagnosis is, and then they either confirm or deny the diagnosis. And so, for us to be putting down that kind of time so that everything is riding with business as usual for them, even though we're dying here. It was insane.
the room just went silent for a long time, because that's all anybody could do. And finally, chimed in and said, Stoller, come help, talk to me. That was like the hardest conversation. That nobody knew, we talked about like silence, where nobody knows how to think about their senior there. But I guess from his point of view, if you consider it, he probably just realized he was stepping because it really wasn't going to take to it. And he just showed his cards to everybody in one swoop. And so that couldn't have been good for him. And I'm sure that, because he does care, or he did when he was here. But they just wasn't there.
Was it part of the organizational structure where you guys reported, your reporting lines were different than him, and so he didn't come, like I assume he wasn't approving time cards.
So the way the college works is that the colleges, the work comes through us, goes to the residents and fellows, and then they all sit together and alternate life experiences. And then a final diagnosis is rendered. And so they, I think they're siloed whenever they're with the fellows, even though they knew that we had 5 people. When Chris Longin came over to the training team for phase 2, it went down to 4. Then we lost the manager and another person, so there was 3, maybe 3 people tops that were handling all of these coming through there. And so they're just they're doing that so that the pathologists don't have to go lose that middle layer of protection of the cytotech doing their thing, because they don't. But it's nice. It reaches the skids. They know the text of the business. They can get to those areas where they need to go quick. They don't have to go and do the work without it. And so they were inside. They weren't. And so we're over here. That's been a long time. I don't like overtime. Overtime is dangerous. You can only do that if you get to do it. Finally got consultants. You might have seen they went to the meeting connected. Where they're saying that the turnaround times are going to get less because we're actually shortage. So we're sending out to other organizations where they don't have any teams. And so it's going to take a little longer to get those back. And so that's where things are at. Maybe that wasn't the best example for this examination because you had to know the backstory.
I think a lot of things though, athletes are trying to create backstories, right? I mean, very rarely are you in a conversation where there's not a whole lot of context that is driving the intensity of the discussion.
It was part of the go live for principal information. That's one thing that I think Wheeler picked up really quick, is being able just to take a situation and make sure that you understand where the people are coming from.
All right, we're gonna bring it back. We're gonna bring this back in. We're gonna finish up the conversations, then we're gonna conclude. Their conversation was so good, they had to stand up.
They're about to throw hands.
They chose. All right. Do we have a volunteer? Anyone who wants to share their conversation? What felt natural? What felt uncomfortable? And how many, maintaining mutual purpose changed the tone. Anybody want to share? There's a lot of good conversation, Lisa.
I can at least share my part that I received from Candace, because she's a great coach. So I identified a conversation I wasn't happy with, and what I missed was the moment that it became a high stakes conversation. So I missed the moment when it became high stakes for me. And then that's when I could have employed sort of the north, south, east, west.
Okay.
But because I missed that moment when it became high stakes, I missed, in my mind, I didn't go kind of through those steps about communicating. And,
are you willing to share more details of the conversation? If not, that's fine.
Yeah, no.
Okay. That's fine.
And I will say that I confined it entirely to my own error, it was like, this is the conversation I wish I had done over. Also, Candace and I are a good pairing because we have very different personalities. And Candace is very diplomatic, and Candace has this very, very big circle of trust. And I'm more analytical, and I have a very small circle of trust. So I know there have been times even this year, some of my strategy has been to say, how would Candace look, how would she, seriously, yes. What would Candace do? And I have a very best friend that's a lot like Candace, and it's the reason why we're such good friends, because we're different like that. Or I sometimes say, what would Emily do? She's very diplomatic. And one of the things she does is extend this broad glow of trust.
Okay.
And I think that's something I could do a lot better.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone heroic enough to share the conversation? I can sit in silence for a little while. Let me see, who do I want to pick on? I want to pick on Justin.
All wisdom comes through wisdom. Well, we talked about, we've been here for 12 years together, so there's lots to choose from, but I live by the modern overgirds, so it's kind of hard, but I guess the only thing I can think of is when I first got here, I didn't present maturely or
I know where you're going. I remember this conversation.
To my office mates, early on, and I really wish I could have done a redo and presented myself more accurately to who I truly was, and also felt more comfortable expressing myself in a way that didn't make me look like a jerk.
You redeemed yourself well.
Yeah, it ended up taking years to fix, and it was a very hard journey for me. But
You've done an excellent job because you were an angel by the time I got
No comment.
Sounds like somebody chose violence.
Liz and
Lots
Justin
of
and I
feedback.
shared
Lots of feedback.
3-ring cubicle at
Good
the
job.
epicenter.
And a lot of growth.
We raised him.
Yep.
Lovely by this time
So
I got here.
that's a lot of what I wish I could have done better.
Okay. Well, I think that's important call out. Sometimes it's not necessarily the conversation, but it's the action, right? That we wish we had a mulligan, but it's important to talk about it. And I'm sure that there was some conversations had after that led to where we're at today.
If you worked with Ruth, there was definitely conversation.
Okay.
Right, Ruth?
That's good.
Oh, yes.
Joey
Say
Violence.
something about that whole interaction just there. What I really liked about that, just because it's like a work relationship, really, is so you can laugh about it now, but also the forgiveness and the willingness to let somebody redeem themselves, and to not brand them as you've disappointed me, you're not, this team member is no good. I think it's really easy to cut relationships and just be like when you have like those awkward or moments where, and then you recognize, hey, I could have done this better, but that room for growth, that you were able, like, both sides worked on that. So I think that there's something really crucial there, and on both sides in that relationship of, I don't know necessarily forgiveness, but room to mess up. And he's like, and sometimes people are the bad guy, and you know you're the bad guy, and you're like, dang, I'm the bad guy. And you realize, like, crap, what do I do now? And it's really awesome to see that can be, that people can move on. And you can have this beautiful, fruitful, relationship, professional relationship.
We all
could
need
have
to know
answered
this.
him in a better way.
Maybe I need to hear it that way.
Yeah, I think it worked, the way I said it.
I can be a little thick-headed, I need the directness.
Yes, Justin's always been able to take my directions.
I was gonna say, if you want directness, go to work.
I don't think there's any pointing out the nail, she just ripped the nail out of it.
Yeah. You know, when I was sitting here, I go, why did he just reach up? I actually thought that. Why are we wasting time
He
this
would have got blood on his shirt. It might have been a mess of things, because I'm sure, it would have been a clean pool.
I don't know the story, but to your, credit that you were willing to listen, and, I mean, I can't even imagine what happened, because Justin, I know, I'm like, what? I need to hear more about this, this happened. But, I mean,
I don't know if I make anyone else
really.
But I think getting, not without going into it, I think Justin was young. He was just out of college. And this was your first major job, or first job ever.
First job.
Yeah. And so, he had a way of thinking about certain things that were not really PC in the world today. It's a little old fashioned thinking. So I think that, yeah, I don't wanna say too much. But I mean, it was hard, Liz and I had a conversation after it happened, because both of us were pretty upset about it. And we both decided that, he'll learn, sooner or later he'll learn, and he has, he's grown a lot.
But it sounds like there was a crucial conversation that took place. Probably not through the framework of crucial conversations.
Probably not exactly that type of. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't see
Anyone else is brave, want to share a heroic conversation that they may have had? I see it right on the tip of a few of y'all tongues.
Janet is encouraging me to share mine, but.
It's very good. It goes into what you want to redo.
Well, and I couldn't think of anything at first, and then, so Janet started with her story, and then something came to mind for me, but unfortunately I didn't do any of this, so that's why I was like, I don't wanna share it, but what Janet said was, you learn something to, the next time maybe, you learn how to handle it better, but, so a project that I was leading, was a little rocky, and someone who was also on the project kinda took a step to kind of take over a little bit, with putting something in place without, kinda like, I would think, from my perspective, I would think if I did that, I would say to the lead, like, hey, I have this idea, do you wanna maybe implement this to kinda help it out, but bypass that and just kinda said, this is what we're doing. So, I didn't, I just, instead of like saying my feelings about that, like, I wish you would've come to me first, since I was leading the project, I wish you would've come to me first and asked if we could do that, or suggested to me or something, but, I just kinda was like, okay, I guess that's a good idea, okay, we're gonna do that, so, but, I don't know, my whole point was that when now that I'm looking at all this, now I wish, how I could have done it differently, so.
Understood. How do you think it would have went if you did it differently or used one of these tools?
I think it
So we have a lot of tough conversations on a regular, and I'm sure the discussions that you had about the redos that you wish you had, it's you know, failure, what do you say, first attempt in learning, right? Fail. So oftentimes we have a failed conversation, or it didn't go the way we wanted to. The key thing is just not leaving it there, right? That's just with almost anything in our world. We make mistakes, we work to resolve them and make things better. I think that that's just like our motto, right, with training specifically. But I want to offer you a different perspective as well. I think the most important conversations that we have are the ones that we have with ourselves. And I can tell you a bunch of conversations I've had with myself that I wish I was like, man, why did I even say that? Because it prevented me from doing something that I wish I would have done. So things always start off as a thought, then they become, spoken, and then they end up becoming actions. So while we're thinking about the conversations that we have with each other and some other folks that are maybe not here, I just want you to invite you to also think about the crucial conversations, the heroic conversations that we have with ourselves. And it's all right to have a failed conversation. I have a failed conversation with myself almost daily, and I have to talk myself back into where I need to be at. And that's an important part of growth and development. So with that being said, I want to thank each of you for your time, for your attention throughout this whole day. This has been a long day. We've been talking about a lot of things. A lot of information has been shared, and you guys have stayed with me throughout this whole time. So I want to thank you, and I want to give you guys an applause. So we are concluding the professional development workshop section. We have one more piece, I think, maybe two, but I will bring up Kate, who will conclude us with a final remarks.
Yeah. Always fun to be the last thing between you and checking in on the World Cup, or I just checked the score. So first of all, I want to say it's so cool to be here. This is a really neat thing that you all come together every summer, and it's just a great joy for me to be here. I wrote Jose this morning and said I was really looking forward to it. So thank you for inviting me. What I thought I could talk about is culture and change. I promise I will keep this at 5 minutes. So one of the things that my new boss has asked me to do is focus on how we can build a better culture in HIT across the entire division. And that's one reason that I kind of plucked Maura and said, I need help, because I feel like this team has a thriving culture. And I like to think that hopefully all of the teams that work within my group are similarly communities where people are happy to work together and there's more openness and accountability. But there's a lot of work to do across HIT, and HIT is huge. It's like 617 people. And so it's a little overwhelming to think how to make that kind of change at scale. And the reason I'm talking to you about that is I think you play a part. So the culture that I think we need to create in HIT includes community. I don't think that we're a tight-knit community as a division. I don't even think that the leadership team is a tight-knit community. We are making steps, but we're not there yet. It also includes customer focus. There are a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of people since I started doing this new job, and there are a lot of people who are doing what they do in HIT because they really believe in the mission of healthcare, and it is deeply meaningful to them, like I think it is for many of you, and certainly it is for me, to be here and be a part of that. But it doesn't always translate in the way that we, as a division, show up at work. And I think we need to take that passion that we have and show it to the people that we serve. And those are two different things. So I can talk to someone and say, why do you work here? Like, what's your why? And they may be able to articulate it, and I may think, wow, I would have never guessed that from like, you know, how they show up at work. And so that's one thing, showing people that we really care about what our customers experience with technology. So community, customer focus, accountability. Sunny has talked about this. I think owning the outcomes of our actions is super important, and I don't know that we have that consistently. I'm not even gonna say that. We do not have that consistently across HIT. And I think it's partly because we haven't set a base expectation of what it looks like to work in HIT and deliver well. And so if we're saying this is who we are, then we can hold ourselves accountable for it. But if it's just willy-nilly, it depends on what team you work on, it's hard to be accountable for that. So community, customer, accountability, gratitude. I think that to be a thriving culture, you have to practice gratitude. And I see that in this team all the time. When I ask for your comments during the huddle, it's a lot of trainers that pipe up and comment on how people have helped them. That builds community. It widens circles of trust, right? And when you practice gratitude, you start feeling a bigger sense of trust because you hear people relying on one another. And so you guys are, I would say, on the edge of the change that we're making. You are kind of the tip. I see you as having these characteristics already and others being able to learn from them. And so that's the first thing I wanted to say is culture is super important, and that's where I'm really focused. And hopefully this seems like a good thing, because I think all of you have tried to work with other teams. Certainly when I shared the engagement results the other day, one thing that you saw is people are saying work units don't work well together. And I think that if we focus on these things, we will find that within HIT we're saying, yes, we're working better together because we all feel like we're in it together. So culture is the first C. The second C that I want to share is challenge of change, 3 C's. When Sunny first got here, we started talking about changing the culture of IT, and he said, so we talked about some of these things, and then he said, I want to warn you, this is going to be a really hard journey. And I was like, yeah, I know. I've done this before. He was like, no, could you stop and listen to what I have to say? I was like, yes, of course. What do you have to say? And he said, when you are at the tip of the spear of the change, it is very hard because your mindset has changed and other people's hasn't. And you're looking around you and you're saying, what are you people doing? Here's where we are. We're over here. We're like customer focused, and we are, we round and we go out, we have community and we practice gratitude. What are you all doing? And it can be very frustrating because you've moved on and other people are following you. And I thought, okay, yeah, I buy it. I respect him very much. So when he said it, I was like, all right, I get it. I know what you mean. Intellectually, sure, that makes sense. And then the next day, I'm in a meeting and I had been coached to push accountability where it should be. Because as someone who had worked at UVA for a long time, when no one took responsibility for something, what did I do? I jumped right in there and I did it myself. And Sunny's guidance was, don't do that. If it's not your job, hold the person whose job it is accountable for doing it. So in this case, it was emergency management. And I caught myself and I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not an emergency management professional. And so I tried to force accountability back on them. Kindly, I said, hey, look, I'm not an emergency management professional. I don't think you want IT running emergency management activities. And it didn't end well. And over the course of the next couple of weeks, I found multiple situations where I had shifted my mindset on what accountability meant. Accountability doesn't just mean you take care of your own actions, it means holding people responsible for what they have to do. And when my mindset shifted on that, I got frustrated because other people weren't doing it. And so my request of you is to persist. and don't, you can get frustrated, and you have a community here that you can rely on to say, it feels like other teams, maybe I'm working with this other team and we're not acting like a community yet. Cause we're trying to get them there, right? So teams that you may have struggled to work with, customers that aren't doing their part, operational leaders who aren't coming to the table, you're gonna be thinking, come on with us. Like, this is what we're gonna do, and they're gonna get there a little slower in some cases than this team. And I'm right there with you. I felt the frustration, and my request of you is persist. Because I do believe that there's a tide turning with UVA health broadly, and certainly in HIT. I see lots of indicators that we're gonna be a stronger organization. And I'm not just saying that. If I didn't believe it, I just wouldn't say it at all. I would just say this is what we're gonna do. But I do see lots of indications that we have leaders who understand how to lead a complex organization, expect accountability, want a customer-focused perspective, want respect, gratitude, all of these things that I said, and they're pushing that in their own teams. It's just gonna take us a while to get there. So I will thank you in advance for your help on this journey, and also say that I always wanna hear your feedback, because the further that I find myself from, like, organizationally, if you look purely from a hierarchy standpoint, the further I am from you all, further away I am from you, the harder it is for me to keep a pulse on the day-to-day, and you know that, and I have to know it or I'm not gonna be good at my job. And so I try to find ways to do it, but you coming to me and saying, hey, did you know this? Or, hey, heads up, you might wanna hear about this project, is a huge benefit for me. So I am not, I may be in different meetings now than I was in the past, but you are my eyes and ears, and you all are on the front of this. So never hesitate to either approach me directly, go through your chain, and say, we need to look at this because we know what you're trying to do and we're not quite there yet. So please keep talking to me about stuff like that. And I look forward to the next year and the change that you have underway. Because as someone who's dropping in occasionally and seeing how these, I talk to Jose all the time, of course, but you know, being with this whole group, there's gaps, right? Kind of like when you see your nephew and like he's 5'10" and then all of a sudden he's 6'3" and you're like, whoa, what happened there? Same thing here. I haven't, you know, it's been a year since I've heard you all talk about this, and you're 6'3" now. So I can't wait to be back here next summer and to hear where you are after this. But in the meantime, let's keep chugging away. Thank you.